Hey there guys, Timballer here, and today I'll be talking to you guys about Celtic tattoos, or ancient Celtic tattoos anyways. Now, this actually has come to me under the comment of Sharmana, and now I am sorry if I'm mispronouncing that in any way or any form. It's just the cultural different region from Australia to the US is a little, hard to explain. But anyways, now this comment got me very happy to look at this. I was planning on doing this a little further in the series, but I'm surprised actually anyone knows about Celtic tattoos, seeing as though ancient Celtic tattoos compared to modern tattoos of Celtic symbols are different in comparison. In other words, whenever you type up something, say on Google or something like that on the internet, you know what you get? You get all these modern tattoos. In other words, like the Celtic cross or interwoven knot symbols and such. But in truth, the Celtic symbols of the ancient past were 3 times different compared to our modern day symbols. In other words, it'd be like this. If I was to actually go into the ancient past and go and see of like some sort of symbols, there would be different symbols in the general regions. Such as the type of symbols that would have actually been used would have actually mostly been the Celtic spirals, but as well would have been the Celtic symbol of unity and peace. Now, there were some Celtic swastikas. Now, before you guys start saying, Templar, all the swastikas are racist. Well, I have to advise you about this, that they're not. There's only one symbol of swastika that's racist, and that's the Nazis. The other symbols of swastikas are from across the entire known world since the Neolithic, well, Stone Age. So if you think about it, it's not a racist symbol. But in truth, though, the swastika was actually, in the Celtic symbol's eyes, the gods themselves, seeing as though they are both one and all. If you guys don't realize this, even the Isle of Man's flag is actually a representation of a swastika. So, yeah. It's confusing, I know. But now, let's actually talk about this a little bit more. Now, when we take a look at ancient Celtic people, we normally think of, say, the peasant class. Well, what did the peasants have? Well, the peasants were actually sometimes given a type of primordial or symbols that actually represent either their religion, medical purpose, or something else. We do not know. But it is also stated that sometimes they would actually even tattooed their prisoners or criminals of some sort in order for people to understand of the crimes they committed. So in other words, just think about that. They committed a crime and they want to make sure to actually have all the world to see. We can actually see this in ancient Japan or feudal Japan when they did this to the Yakuza. When pretty much nowadays the Yakuza have tattoos all over their bodies. In truth, they originally mostly had it on their head or their forearm. Now though, even during the medieval age they had brandings, so there's extreme differences. But now you guys might wonder, how did ancient Celts actually manufacture their tattoos? Well, there were different type of forms. One of the most ancient forms was the old needle and thread, or needle and horsehair. And if you guys don't understand how hard this one is, it's kind of like sewing someone up. You actually take a bone needle, yes, a bone needle, and this hurts 3 times more than a regular needle. And this is what's pretty much without any anesthetic at the age. So, yeah, that's kind of scary. But as well, it's also stated that upon actually manufacturing it upon the human body, this type of bone needle would actually have horsehair that would have been doused in either ashes, ink, or something like that. We still do not know what they might have used. Since the bodies are so badly decayed, it's hard to say whether or not that these were actually ink at all. But it is stated that upon actually drawing it through, in other words, like say if I'm having a tattoo on my arm here, what would happen is I prick my hand with the needle, drawing it out the other way, just like you're sewing someone up, except you don't actually have, well, the thread connect inside. In other words, what you gotta do is you don't just leave it all just staying in there. You gotta drag it all the way out in doing so. Now sometimes they would apply pressure in order to make the ash or the ink blotch a little bit bigger. In fact, during the Neolithic Age, this was mostly used. It was only later on in history, though, that there was a different type of form of tattooing. Now, most of the time, though, these symbols were used as symbols of, say, a sun, a spiral of some sort. But these spirals were like dots, pretty much, if you think about it. In other words, it's like dot, 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 but it makes a beautiful symbol. In doing so, it was pretty impressive at the time. But now, it was only later on in history when the Celts manufactured a different type of way, using bone, a different, as well, antler bone, and as well, a wood, as well, actually doing like what the Mayans, or including the people of the Polynesian kingdoms, actually as well have done this type as well. Such as we might see with the Maui, with their face, well, with their type of face paint, or face tattoo, if you think about it. So, yeah, it's kind of like that. But this type of manufacturing wasn't done on the face, well, not mostly, but this type of symbolization was actually 3 times more intense. What I mean, though, is that the Celts somehow manufactured this very generally, geniusly in the process. It was actually stated that there was actually an ancient Celtic king in the Hallstatt culture region. And we do not know his original name, but it was stated that by an archaeologist that they named him King Aglo, or King Crown. If you guys don't know what that actually means, well, it's actually stated that upon his forehead, and the skin was pretty much very impressively accurate. But the reason why they gave him this name was because of a tattoo that was symbolized on his forehead. This type of tattooing was impressive. Now, if you guys don't know who did the tattoos at the time, it was the ancient Celtic Druids. Which the Druids themselves had tattoos, but I'll get that a little sooner. But if you think about this type of Celtic tattoo that was on this Celtic warrior or Celtic nobleman, we do not know if he really was a chieftain, but it is stated that the entire impressive, well, I want to say, no, the reason I'm writing my forehead is to give you guys a little bit of an indication of where it was. In fact, it was stated to actually not just be on the forehead, but actually be around the entire skull. Meaning they must have shaved the head in order to actually place all the symbols upon his head. Now, if you guys don't realize, also, they might have even used small little needles that they would actually prick on the head after they actually had used the old bone design. Now, if you guys don't understand of how much painful this must have been, it must have been hours and hours of pain, maybe an all-day symptom. We do not know. But it is stated that there were 2 type of lines on the head. These 2 spiraling, well, knots would in the process make a symbol. This symbolized a crown. One being silver, one being gold. Now, this, in fact, I am not kidding. It was actually stated to have been liquid gold and liquid silver inside the head. Scientists are still trying to find out how the hell this happened. Even archaeologists are not even estimating how it was even possible. Reason being that the tattoos were so generally placed in the skull, it was impressive. In other words, think of a Celtic torque. If you guys don't know what a Celtic torque is, it's that type of symbol that goes around the neck of the person. But yes, now the Celts actually did manufacture torques for symbolization use, but putting it on the crown design model was impressive by far. Some people even think this might have been a prince, seeing as though there was actually a younger person near him. Maybe a son? Princess? We do not know. But it is stated that it only had the silver knot, meaning that the golden knot was placed after a coronation. So that's actually impressive if you think about it. Now, if you guys don't understand how ingenious this is in history books, it still is impressive. Since some Romans actually did discover some Celtic tribes that did this, and were actually fascinated of how they actually managed to do it. And, well, even a trend went off in Rome once or twice when they tried to do tattooing on themselves, but they called it too barbaric. So, yeah. But now, if you guys do not understand that the Celts actually, when they manufactured this, in the process, they didn't just make this spiral in the crown, the spirals of the crown. The impressive part is there were spirals inside the crown. And when I mean spirals inside the crown, think about this. Think about, say, a rope, for example. If we were to take a elongated rope like, say, this, for example, if you guys can tell by just your eyesight, you see just a regular rope right now. But in my sight right now, I see like hundreds of strands all tucked together. In other words, if you were to take a look at a magnifying glass, you could see thousands of interlocking strands. That's the same as this type of crown. It's no wonder that this type of symbol was impressive at the time, because it was ingenious, if you think about it. Now though, other Celts actually did, when they manufactured this type of form of Celtic knotwork and crowns, only did this probably to kings and queens, seeing as though in the very early Dark Ages, a type of king in Scotland or Pitland, whatever you want to pronounce it as, in the process had his own version of a Celtic crown, though this symbol was in the form of a disc. This disc was actually performed by a Christian monk, and the monk actually put the symbol of the cross with several Celtic spirals interlinking into the, well, spiral, in which it was stated to have been golden and green with jade and emeralds and rubies and sapphire. I mean, that is impressive. But unfortunately, we do not know where the body was placed, and we do not know if the skin's still attached. We only do know is that it was impressively beautiful at the time. And the thing is, Celts actually used symbols that were different compared to our modern day. So if you were to go into a tattoo shop and ask for a Celtic symbol, ancient Celtic symbol, you know what they're going to mistake it for? They're going to mistake it for a Celtic cross, a type of symbol that's not generally originally Celtic. Now, don't get me wrong, the Celtic cross is actually one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed, seeing as though it was actually a symbol for unity and peace while being wholly under God. But the thing is, tattoo shops do not get the correct thing right. So pretty much you gotta give them your own symbol. In fact, if you guys can see on the list, there are hundreds of symbols that the Celts would have used. And as well, there might have been millions more, but what we actually do inform ourselves is that there might not be that many. Or as well, not of our knowledge, because in truth, when the Celts were wiped out mostly by the Romans, the Germanic kingdoms, it was stated that most of the time when they were conquered, most of their culture was destroyed, so it was hard to say whether or not they had it. But now that brings me to another type of symbols of Celtic ingenious artwork, and this was called smudge tattooing. Now if you guys don't know what the term smudge tattooing is, smudge tattooing is kind of like painting somebody. Now, before you guys actually start going off and start thinking of painting somebody like a blue smurf or whatever, you guys might want to actually hear this out. In truth, when it comes to the ancient Celts, they actually, well, in general, they used a type of form of, I guess you might say, arsenic poisoning? I wouldn't say go that far, but still. Because it's actually stated that the ancient Celts used a type of form of lead, lime, and such. In doing so, mixed it in with a colorization depth. In doing so, they actually smudged it upon the skin. Now, if you guys don't understand of how long this might have taken, it's stated it might have taken around a whole month of doing this. In other words, you're smudging the same repeated stroke upon the skin. In other words, if I put some, well, skin tattooing and I do it, well, smudge tattooing across my skin like so, I would have to do the same type of symbol over and over every day. In other words, a Druid priest had to come down, dip his hands in the little ink, and pretty much do the whole thing over. Now it is stated though that some Druid priests in the process had their fingers look like the same color they were using. So they were so colorful that they were turned black, that they were no color at all. Or some of them turned white as well because they were all colors. But still, you get the point. The thing is though, it was impressive at the time of how the Celts manufactured this ideal form. However, we don't see that much nowadays, which I really wouldn't warn you guys not to do it, due to the fact it's actually kind of dangerous, due to the fact you don't want to actually touch the stuff. So yeah, if you think about it, it's kind of poisonous, and plus you don't want to kill yourself. Though, let's say a lot of people actually end up doing some weird shit, so it's like, well, what's the point of telling you guys not to do it? But still, the type of Celtic symbols of the ancient world are impressive by far. One of the most impressive symbols of all was actually a type of symbol that was placed upon a woman that was in birth. Now, if you guys don't understand that this woman was trying to give birth to around, not triplets, but quadruplets. Wait, is that the correct term? Either way, you get the point. Anyways, when she gave birth to these many kids, she was in such agonizing pain, and upon actually giving birth, she almost died. But it is stated, though, that when the Druids actually tattooed the symbols of their religion upon the woman's womb, it was stated that she had survived, and the babies were even tattooed with the type of symbol of, well, life. Just in case, since no one actually expected to actually have 4 babies born at the same day, seeing as though it was kind of impossible at the time. But as well, many times though, it was impressive of how the Celts managed to actually keep this type of symbol and religion. In fact, most of our ancient Celtic symbols are based on our religion, the things we saw, and the things we believed in, such as the spiraling swastika meant the sun, the stars, the gods, while many other symbols, such as the spirals of unity, symbolized togetherness, the world tree, and such. If you guys don't understand, the Celts did have their own form of world tree, which had its own version of symbols. But as well, there were even other Celtic symbols, such as the Celtic Lacil. Now, if you guys don't know what the Celtic Lacil is a type of symbol in which it goes from around the heart to the back, across the shoulders, in a spiraling form. This would have taken years to manufacture, seeing as though one of the bodies that was discovered was actually discovered only with part of its skin on its left shoulder, but it was impressively badass. Reason being that it was actually all just like the same with the rope. It was all connected. It was all had microscopic design model that no one could actually ever understand. In doing so, it was impressive by far. But as well, even the Celts manufactured other type of tattoos, symbols that would actually represent their spirit animal. Now, their spirit animal is supposed to be the spirit animal that they are born with. If you guys don't understand the Celtic type of New Year symbols, it's kind of just like the Chinese New Year whenever they have their symbols. For me, since I was born in 1997, I actually have the symbol of the bear. Now, there are other symbols such as the ox, the horse, the dragon, and so on. But as well, not many of them are remembered, such as the elk and such. Still though, the bear stood for strength and loyalty and such and such. But as well, some of them even represent a crane, a bird, or something. But still, there are a lot of them that are missing. And in doing so, what they actually did was impressive. Now, when they actually tattooed it upon them, it's actually stated they might have done it upon the chest, like right where their heart is, showing that's actually their true form. Now, it is stated though that sometimes it would have actually might have been tattooed upon the cheek, upon the shoulders, depending on the person. Now, it is even stated that while actually fighting against the Celtic Gauls, the Romans actually stated to have actually seen Celts actually tattooed with a beautiful ornate design, especially a Celtic chieftain who was actually stated to have had a beautiful type of Celtic knotwork mixed in with symbols of animals all across his chest and his back. Now, this might have actually represented the world itself, this region he lived in, but just think of how long it might have actually taken to have it tattooed. Though it is stated though that many Celts actually most of the time had their tattoos upon their chest, seeing as though not many of them were seen upon the forearm or the head. I can understand that, seeing as though it was a form of religion, and their religion is holy to them, meaning that they're not to, well, do it in public. Though as well, there are hundreds of Celtic symbols around the world that we still do not know about that make beautiful artwork today. And even though if we were to, try and rediscover this and remake it in tattoo shops, it still would be extremely hard to do, seeing as though some people don't actually really understand the way I'm doing it, seeing as though if you were to go to a tattoo shop, they don't understand the old-fashioned form. In other words, they just put the lines and that's it. They don't do it like they would do with a rope. They don't see the multiple strands in the rope, which meaning that it's kind of impossible to understand if they will ever understand it at all. Still though, ancient Celtic tattoos are impressive by far, and in general, I just love the way they look as well, because they are lost to history and they are incredibly beautiful. Anyways guys, this is Templar. Hopefully you liked this video. If you guys wanted me to actually talk about anything else for the month of March, let me know in the comments below. Also like and subscribe and hit that bell button for more videos, as well help the channel grow as well. As well guys, if you guys can please also try doing your own Celtic symbols, let me know down in the comments below, and I will get right to you anytime soon. Anyways guys, this has been Templar. Have a good day.